A busy tea room hides something foul. The Bluebell tea room was crowded. Teapots clinked, cups shifted, chairs scraped. But Miss Marple's eyes were steady. She sat across from Dolly Bantry. Both women had a plate of scones untouched. Dolly leaned forward. "Jane, this place is livelier than usual." Her eyes were on the cake stand. She always had an appetite. Marple smiled faintly. "Yes, Dolly, business seems brisk." A heavy voice cut through the noise. "Pearl, over here." Lionel Archer was waving from a corner table. Large frame, louder voice. He enjoyed being noticed. Pearl hurried to him with her notepad, her steps quick, her eyes tense. Archer smiled wide. "The full Devonshire tea today. Clotted cream, jam, 2 sugar cubes for my tea. Exactly 2, not 1, not 3. His tone carried across the room. Heads turned. He liked it that way. Pearl nodded, writing fast. Her hand shook. She adjusted her tray. "Very good, sir." Archer leaned back. He pulled out a polished pocket watch, snapped it open, announced the time loudly. 3 o'clock sharp. Perfect. He glanced at the window. The lane outside was quiet. Dolly muttered to Marple. "Jane, he's performing for everyone." Marple's knitting needles clicked, but her ears were sharp. "He does enjoy attention, Dolly. Some men thrive on it." Pearl set down his tea, the pot, the saucer, the sugar bowl. 2 small cubes placed with precision. Archer's smile grew. "Splendid service, my dear. Remember, 2 cubes. I like order." Pearl gave a small nod. Her face flushed. Marple watched the exchange. Her eyes flicked to the sugar bowl. It was neat. Too neat. He had spoken about sugar twice now, a habit worth noticing. She let the thought rest. For the moment. Dolly sighed. "Victor Caro was to meet him here, wasn't he?" "Yes, Dolly, at 20 past. And yet he's late." Marple's eyes stayed calm. "Yes, he is late." Archer sipped his tea. Exaggerated delight. "Nothing like this blend. Ivy has done wonders. Tell your husband I said so, Mrs. Rower." His voice carried again. The owner, Ivy Rower, gave a stiff smile from the counter. Dolly whispered, "Jane, doesn't it strike you as odd?" "What exactly, Dolly?" "That Archer repeats himself. About sugar, about time, as if rehearsing." Marple's eyes narrowed. Yes, odd indeed. Pearl cleared another table. Her tray rattled. Her hand trembled. Marple noticed. Nerves. But why? The tea room buzzed on. Cups lifted. Chairs moved. But to Marple a heaviness pressed in. She could sense tension under the chatter. Archer's boasting. Pearl's unease. Victor Caro's empty chair. Then... The bell above the door rang hard. Tommy Meadows rushed in, breathless, his face pale, his voice cracked. "Mrs. Rower, you must come. Something terrible." The room froze. Chatter stopped. All eyes turned. Tommy gasped, words breaking out. "Mr. Caro, he's dead." Miss Marple sat still, her cup untouched, her eyes grave. A boy's cry had cut through the noise of ordinary tea, and ordinary was gone. The news of death had just entered with him. The boy's words freezed the room. Tommy's chest heaved, his voice shook. "Mr. Caro, he's dead." The tea room went silent. A spoon clattered. Someone gasped. Pearl gripped her tray so tight her knuckles whitened. Mrs. Rower pushed forward. "What are you saying, child?" Tommy's eyes filled with fear. "Father sent me. Caro's office. Blood everywhere. His head struck down. A heavy object. He's not breathing." Dolly's hand flew to her mouth. Good heavens. Marple lowered her knitting, her eyes steady. She asked softly, "When did your father find him, Tommy?" "Just now. He went to deliver a letter. The door was open. Caro was on the floor." Dr. Sanford jumped up. "Where exactly?" "At his office, sir, across the lane." Sanford snatched his medical bag. He hurried out with long strides. Tommy followed, stumbling on his small feet. The doorbell jangled as it shut behind them. Inside, panic spread. Voices rose. Questions tangled together. Mrs. Carmichael trembled, book slipping from her hands. Dead. Murdered. In St. Mary Mead. Another woman whimpered. Who would do such a thing? Archer leaned back in his chair. He buttered a scone with slow, steady hands. Dreadful business, he muttered, his voice calm. Too calm. Dolly stared at him. Jane, look at him. He doesn't even flinch. Marple's eyes lingered on Archer's hand. The knife spread jam, but the fingers trembled ever so slightly. Ivy Rower wrung her hands. Oh, this is terrible. Right across the lane. In broad daylight, Pearl whispered. He was supposed to meet Archer here, wasn't he? No one answered. Moments later, the bell rang again. The door opened. A tall man entered with heavy steps. Inspector Slack. His sergeant followed. The inspector removed his hat. His eyes scanned the room. Faces pale. Cups untouched. Fear everywhere. Slack's voice cut firm. Good afternoon. I need everyone to remain where they are. A serious matter has taken place. His sergeant moved to the door. No one left. Dr. Haydock arrived behind him, breathless. He gave a grave nod. It's true. Poor Caro is gone, head struck from behind, likely with his seal press. A wave of whispers rippled through the tables. Murder in St. Mary Mead. Slack cleared his throat. We must establish who saw what and when. His notebook snapped open. He looked directly at Archer. Now then, Mr. Archer, Slack said, stepping closer. You had an appointment with the deceased, didn't you? Archer blinked, lips pressed thin. Yes, Inspector, at 3:20. Slack's pencil hovered. And where exactly were you between 3:15 and 3:30? Miss Marple sat still. The chatter, the fear, the whispers, she heard them all. But her mind lingered on one truth. Murder was near, closer than anyone dared to believe. Inspector Slack's question hung in the air, sharp as a blade. Archer's voice sounds too rehearsed. All eyes turned toward Archer. He dabbed his lips with a napkin. His voice came smooth. I've been here the whole time, from 3:10. Haven't moved from this table. Inspector Slack's brow rose. You're certain of that? Of course, Archer said firmly. You may ask anyone. Mrs. Rower, Pearl, Miss Marple herself. They will all confirm it. He reached into his coat pocket, pulled out a folded slip, a receipt. He held it up for Slack. Devonshire tea, time-stamped 3:12. Slack took the slip, examined the ink, read the time aloud. 3:12, convenient. Pearl stood frozen. Slack's eyes moved to her. You wrote this? Yes, Inspector, she whispered. Mr. Archer arrived then. I made out the receipt myself. Her hands twisted in her apron. Her voice trembled. Archer smiled faintly. You see? Quite simple. I was here. He spread his hands. Calm, too calm. Mrs. Rower cleared her throat. Inspector, I can vouch for him, too. At 3:00 he had an accident. Spilled his raspberry cordial, right down his waistcoat. I fetched him napkins. Slack's pencil scratched in his notebook. He nodded slowly. Spilled cordial at 3. A clumsy distraction, perhaps. Marple sat quietly, her needles still in her lap. She had watched Archer carefully. His answers came too smooth, rehearsed, as though lines memorized before a performance. She looked toward the teapot at his table. A faint, dried mark ran down the spout, as if poured once and left untouched, not a steady use through half an hour. Her eyes shifted to the saucer. Sugar dust clung to the edge, but not in neat cube fragments, granules, scattered like ordinary spoon sugar. Archer had demanded cubes, twice, loudly, insisting. But what lay in his cup told another story. Pearl avoided her gaze, her cheeks pale, her lips pressed shut. Marple noted the silence. Not denial, not correction, only unease. Archer leaned back. "Well then, Inspector, you have your answer. I was here, drinking tea. Everyone saw me. Ask the whole room. My alibi is clear." Slack studied him, eyes narrowed. The sergeant shifted uncomfortably. No one spoke. Marple lowered her gaze to her knitting. The needles tapped once. Her thoughts spun faster than the wool. Something in Archer's story did not fit. Small things, small lies, small enough to build something larger. She raised her eyes again. Her glance lingered on the sugar trail. So small, so telling. Marple's heart sank a little. Truth rarely announced itself. It whispered through details. And those whispers were already speaking against Archer. She stared at the saucer. The sugar was wrong, not cubes, granules. "Another suspect appears." The tea room buzzed again. Low voices, uneasy glances. Everyone wanted to speak. No one wanted to be heard. Mrs. Carmichael leaned close to Dolly. Her voice dropped. "I saw Dr. Sanford with Caro last week." Dolly blinked. "What of it?" "They quarreled." Outside the parish hall, I heard raised voices. Marple's ears caught it. She leaned a fraction closer. "What were they quarreling about?" Mrs. Carmichael's face pinched. "Money. I heard Caro mention bills, medical accounts, said something about irregular entries." Dolly frowned. "You mean he accused Sanford?" Mrs. Carmichael nodded firmly. "That's what it looked like. Caro waved papers. Sanford grew red in the face, called him petty." Slack's head lifted. His pencil moved quickly. He walked over. "Mrs. Carmichael, repeat what you said." Her eyes darted nervously. "It was last Tuesday, Parish Hall. I saw Caro confront Dr. Sanford, said something about his bills in the church accounts. He was angry." Slack's jaw tightened. He scribbled in his book. "So Caro discovered irregular medical charges." He shut the book with a snap. "Doctor, Sanford will have to explain himself." Pearl hovered nearby. She wrung her hands. "Dr. Sanford always comes for tea. He pays properly. He never seems dishonest." Her voice was soft, unsure. Archer gave a dry laugh. "Doctors aren't saints, girl. Don't trust appearances. You'll learn." He sipped his tea again. Too calm. Dolly leaned close to Marple. "What if it wasn't Archer at all? What if Sanford killed Caro to keep his accounts hidden?" Marple's eyes narrowed, her voice gentle. "Perhaps. But gossip alone does not make guilt." Slack tapped his notebook. Still, motive must be considered. Medical bills, exposure, shame, money, all led to murder. He closed the cover. His eyes shifted toward the door. Sanford will be questioned the moment he returns. The room settled in uneasy silence. Cups sat cold, plates untouched. Every whisper grew sharper, every glance darted. Pearl murmured, "It's dreadful." Thinking of Dr. Sanford as a suspect. Mrs. Rower pressed her lips tight. Better a doctor questioned than an innocent blamed. Marple studied the tablecloth, her thoughts careful. She remembered Sanford's rush, his genuine urgency, but she also remembered what Mrs. Carmichael said. Quarrels, papers waved, money questioned. It could not be ignored. The bell rang again. The door opened sharply. All heads turned. Dr. Sanford stepped in, his face pale, his bag still in hand, and on his cuff, a dark red smear. Dolly gasped. Mrs. Carmichael whispered, "Blood." Marple's gaze did not waver. Truth hid in shadows. But shadows had to be tested, even if they belonged to men of trust. Sanford's blood-stained cuff drew every eye in the room. The evidence doesn't fit. Inspector Slack's eyes locked on Dr. Sanford. His tone was sharp. "Blood on your cuff, doctor. Explain that." Sanford raised his hands, his voice steady. "It is not Caro's blood from violence. I examined the body. I knelt beside him. I checked his wound. My cuff brushed against it. Slack narrowed his eyes. You expect us to believe that? Sanford's reply came quick. Yes, I am a doctor. I responded as a doctor. Ask Tommy. He saw me. I tried to confirm if life remained. Tommy nodded weakly. It's true, Inspector. He bent down. He touched Mr. Carrow's wrist. He tried to help. Slack's pencil paused. He grunted. Very well, for now. Archer leaned forward, smug. You see, Inspector? Better to focus on facts, unlike gossip. He tapped his pocket. My receipt. 312. Proof I was here. Slack shot him a hard look. Proof, perhaps, but even proof can bend. Archer chuckled. You sound like Miss Marple, always doubting. He placed the receipt on the table. Time-stamped, witnessed. What more do you need? Marple's eyes drifted to Pearl. The girl's hands trembled. Her lips pressed tight. Her apron twisted in her fingers. Slack noticed. You served Mr. Archer, didn't you? Pearl swallowed. Yes, sir. Her eyes flickered toward the counter. Yes, I gave him his order. Tea, cream, jam. Slack pressed. Yes, sir. Devonshire tea, she whispered. Marple's gaze sharpened. Her eyes slid to the ticket roll behind the counter. Still full, edges untouched. Cream tickets remained in neat order, not a single stub torn off. Her mind ticked quickly. If no cream ticket had been used, then cream had not been served. Slack folded his arms. You seem uncertain, Pearl. Her throat closed. She bit her lip, her face pale. Archer's smile widened. Don't frighten the poor girl, Inspector. She's shy. But his voice carried a shade too much triumph. Marple leaned forward gently. Pearl, dear, did you serve him cream, or was it something else? Pearl's eyes filled with tears. Her words slipped out. I think... Her voice cracked. I may have served butter, not cream. The tea room froze. Archer's smug face stiffened. Slack's pencil tapped sharply on his notebook. Marple folded her hands. Small slips revealed large truths, and a slip of butter against cream might weigh more than Archer expected. One detail at a time, the mask of certainty began to crack. Pearl's trembling voice broke the silence. I may have served butter, not cream. A small slip of ink tells a lie. Inspector Slack tapped the receipt. 312, issued by Pearl, signed, all clear. Marple leaned forward. May I? Her hand hovered. Slack sighed, but passed it to her. Go on, Miss Marple, but I doubt you'll find more than I did. Marple adjusted her spectacles. Her eyes scanned the slip. The handwriting neat, the figures sharp. But one small detail stood out. She spoke quietly. This was written in blue ink. Her finger rested on the bold digits. Yet I recall the pen behind the counter. It writes in green. Slack frowned. He turned to Mrs. Rower. Is that so? Mrs. Rower hesitated. Yes, Inspector. We changed the cartridge just after lunch. Since 2 o'clock it is written only green. Pearl's eyes widened. Her lips parted. But I thought... Her words trailed off. Marple's voice gentle. You thought the pen was still the same? Pearl nodded quickly. Yes, I must have been mistaken. I don't know. Slack's pencil scratched hard. So either the receipt was written before 2 or someone switched pens. His eyes narrowed at Archer. Which is it? Archer's jaw tightened. Ridiculous. You're chasing shadows. The receipt is genuine. He puffed out his chest. Ask anyone. I was here. Everyone saw. Marple's eyes softened, but her tone stayed calm. Receipts may tell time, but ink tells truth. And this ink speaks of hours before your tea was served. Pearl's hands shook. I don't remember. I swear I don't remember when I wrote it. Her voice cracked. I thought it was 3:12. He said it was. Slack leaned close. He told you, not the clock. Pearl's silence was answer enough. The room grew still. Archer's face darkened. His fingers tapped the table. Well, I suppose memories blur, especially for silly girls under pressure. His smile returned, but thinner. Too thin. Marple folded the receipt. Her eyes did not leave Archer's face. She placed it neatly back on the table, her words quiet, measured, but certain. This alibi is staged. Dolly's eyes darted between them. She whispered, "Jane, you sound so sure." Marple's reply was soft. "Because lies, Dolly, are always dressed too neatly. Truth never needs rehearsal." Her whisper cut through the silence. This alibi is staged. A door without a bell is more dangerous than one with it. Marple rose from her chair. Her voice was calm. "I would like to see the service, Allie." Slack gave a shrug. Nothing to see there, just deliveries. Marple's eyes did not waver. "Still, I should like to test it." Mrs. Rower hesitated, then nodded. "The back door is through the kitchen." She led the way. Dolly followed, her steps uncertain. Slack came last, notebook ready. The alley stretched behind the tea room, narrow, empty, a door at one end. Caro's office stood across the lane. Marple pulled out her small watch. She handed her bag to Dolly. "Time me." Then she set off. Her steps were steady. One turn, a quick crossing. She reached Caro's door, stopped, raised her hand. 3 minutes, Dolly called. Marple returned by the same route. Another 3 minutes. She rejoined them. Breath even. "So," she said softly. Archer could have left his table, walked this path, reached Caro, struck him down, and returned. 6 minutes in all. Slack frowned, but no one saw him leave. Marple's eyes rested on him, because this door has no bell, no sound to betray it. Dolly shivered. "Jane, you make it sound so easy." Marple nodded. "Too easy, and the receipt, timed before the ink could tell otherwise, covered the absence neatly." Slack grumbled. Still, someone would have noticed him. Marple glanced back toward the tables. Not if they were distracted. They returned to the tea room. Archer sat with folded arms. He smirked as they entered. "Well, have you finished your little walk?" Marple stepped past him without reply. She stopped by a side table. She picked up a glass. Her hands moved as if clumsy. The glass tipped. It fell hard. It shattered across the floor. Every head turned at once. Gasps, voices, all eyes on the broken glass. Marple's voice cut through the noise. "You see, Inspector, a simple distraction. Everyone looks away. One man could vanish, slip through a back door, return before notice." Archer's face darkened. Slack's eyes narrowed. Dolly's hand tightened on Marple's arm. Dolly whispered, "Jane, you've proved it." He could have done it. Marple's gaze stayed fixed on the shards on the floor, her voice quiet. "Proof of possibility, Dolly. Not proof of guilt, but possibility is enough to keep suspicion alive." The broken glass glittered, and Archer's smirk faded into silence. Ashes speak when paper cannot. Marple's eyes moved toward the corner, near the counter. A small iron bin stood half full, ashes still warm. She stepped closer. "Mrs. Rower, may I?" The woman nodded, uneasy. "Yes, Miss Marple. It's only rubbish." Marple bent slightly. Her fingers stirred the gray dust. Fragments clung together, black edges curled, but words survived. She lifted one small piece, the print faint but legible. "Devonshire." Slack's eyes narrowed. Same as Archer's order. Marple placed it carefully aside. Another fragment came free. She brushed the ash with slow care. Numbers showed clear. 310. The inspector leaned in. That's before the receipt. Before 312, Dolly's eyes widened. "Jane, does it mean—" Marple's voice cut gentle. "It means another order slip existed. One Archer did not wish to be seen." Slack's jaw tightened. He pulled a pencil from his pocket. "Burned evidence. Why burn unless hiding time? Archer gave a harsh laugh. Ridiculous. Those slips pile up every day. You think every burnt scrap means guilt? Slack faced him. Yet this one mentions Devonshire tea, and a time that does not fit your neat story. Pearl's lips trembled. I never burned it. I never touched the bin. Mrs. Rohr shook her head quickly. I clear rubbish at closing. No one before me. Unless... Her eyes flicked to Archer. He sat stiff, eyes hard. Marple placed the fragments together on the table. The ink smudged, but still clear enough. Devonshire, 310, not 312. This receipt does not match truth. Slack wrote in bold strokes. Archer, you feared discovery, so you burned the slip that showed when you truly ordered. Archer's lips curved into a thin smile. Or perhaps someone wishes to frame me. Did you consider that, Inspector? The sergeant muttered, Frame or not, it points your way. Dolly whispered to Marple, Jane, it feels like a net tightening. Marple's reply was low. Yes, Dolly. But nets break if one knot slips. We must tie them carefully. Pearl's voice shook again. He asked me to fetch hot water at 3. He could have taken the slip himself. Her eyes filled. I should have noticed. Slack shut his notebook, his eyes sharp. Notice or not, he feared the truth. Marple laid the blackened slips flat. Ashes crumbled at her touch. Truth, she thought, was fragile. Yet even in ashes, truth still left marks. Marks a liar could not erase. Inspector Slack muttered low, his eyes fixed on Archer, so Archer feared the truth. Death returns to the tea room. Inspector Slack questioned the tables one by one. Voices shook, faces paled, fear hung thick. Dolly lifted her cup. She tried to steady her hand. Her voice whispered to Marple, all this horror, and still tea feels safer than silence. She sipped, a small swallow, then coughed, hard. Her hand gripped the table edge, her face flushed red, her breath shallow. Dolly! Marple cried out. Dr. Haydock leapt forward. Don't move her chair, let me see. He pried the cup from her hand. He sniffed. His face darkened. Bitter, very bitter. This tea was altered. Dolly gasped again, then steadied. She clutched her throat. I swallowed only a little. It burned. Haydock forced water to her lips. Rinse, spit, don't swallow. He held her hand until her color returned. Her breathing eased. Slack's face turned grim. So a second attempt. Right here, right under our eyes. He turned to the room. Which of you touched this cup? Pearl sobbed. I poured it. I swear it was fresh from the pot. I only turned away for a moment. Archer leaned back. Imagine that. Another poisoned drink. Yet I, sitting calmly, remain untouched. His hands folded his napkin with care, each edge pressed neat. Slack's glare hardened. Quiet, Archer. No clever remarks. Haydock inspected the cup again. Powder, white residue at the rim, enough to harm if swallowed whole, but not fatal in this small sip. Mrs. Rohr clutched her chest. My establishment, poison served from my pots. What will people say? Slack barked. Never mind reputation, woman. Someone here tried to kill again. That means the murderer is still desperate, still hiding among you. The room shifted, eyes darted, whispers cut, every face shadowed by suspicion. Marple remained still. Her gaze swept the tables. Her mind measured fear against composure. Every hand shook. Every glance betrayed nerves, except one. Dolly whispered faintly, Jane, I thought I was finished. Marple touched her arm gently. No, Dolly, not finished, but someone wanted you so. Pearl wrung her hands. It could have been me. I left the tray. I looked away. Anyone could have reached it. Slack snapped. Names, girl. Who stood near your tray? Pearl stammered. I don't remember. Too much noise. Too many faces. Marple's eyes lingered on Archer. His calmness was unnatural, his hands smooth, his napkin folded into a perfect square. Marple's heart ached for Dolly. The comfort of tea turned weapon twice. And in that small comfort poisoned, trust itself began to die. Marple stared at Archer's calm hands folding his napkin, too neat for innocence. Words that don't match hide another truth. The tea room quieted. Dolly rested weak but stable. Slack barked fresh orders. No one leaves, not a step. Marple's eyes wandered, not at faces, not at cups, but at corners where small things waited. She noticed a slip beneath the counter, a card, part hidden under stacked menus. Her steps were slow. She bent lightly. She drew it free. A condolence card, plain cream, flowers printed in gray. She opened it. 4 lines of neat words, ordinary words. Deepest regrets. May peace rest. Memory endures. Sorrow shared. Dolly frowned. Who leaves a condolence card in a tea room? Marple said nothing. Her eyes narrowed. She studied the letters, the margins, the spacing. Something was wrong. The words sat uneven. Some letters dipped low, others pressed high. A strange rhythm. She traced her finger down the first letters, line by line. DMMS, no sense. Her eyes shifted, not the start. The second letters, EAOY. She paused, reread. Her eyes widened. She traced again, careful. LYON, a word formed, hidden across the lines. Not regret, not sorrow, but a name. Pearl leaned in. What is it, Miss Marple? Marple closed the card quickly. Nothing yet, child. Just a slip someone thought to leave. Slack turned. What's that in your hand? A card, Marple answered calmly. Most curious, but perhaps of no use. She slid it into her knitting bag. Dolly's eyes searched hers. Jane, you saw something, didn't you? Marple gave her a faint smile. In time, Dolly. In time. The inspector muttered. Strange place for sympathy. Stranger still in the middle of murder. He turned away, busy with his notes. Marple sat down. Her hands rested on her knitting, but her mind raced. Someone had slipped this card, someone clever enough to hide a message in sorrow. She turned the letters again in her thoughts. LYON, not a mistake, not chance, but intention. Her eyes flicked to Archer. He still sat calm. His napkin folded with care. His eyes on no one. Marple lowered her gaze. Secrets rarely spoke aloud, but letters, misplaced, told what lips refused. And in those letters, she had found a shadow pointing toward truth. She whispered to herself, unheard by the rest. Lion. Archer. Money explains more than hate. Inspector Slack spread ledgers across the table, parish accounts, rows of numbers, simple sums. Yet his frown deepened line by line. Marple sat quiet, her needles in her lap. But her eyes stayed sharp on the pages. Slack tapped the margin. These figures don't add. Roof fund shows one number. The bank record shows another. Always a few pounds off, each month, every time. The sergeant leaned closer. Rounding errors, sir? Slack shook his head. Number too neat, too regular. A pattern of theft, not error. Dolly whispered to Marple. Jane, are you saying Archer stole church money? Marple's reply was low. He may not call it stealing, but money taken is money taken. Slack flipped another page. Notes scrawled in Caro's hand. Clear, sharp. Meeting Archer, 3:20, roof fund accounts. Slack read it aloud. Caro meant to confront him, today, minutes before his death. Pearl gasped, her face pale. He was always so proud of those funds, said the roof would shine new by winter. Mrs. Rower wrung her hands. And instead, murder. Slack's pencil stabbed at the page. Not just murder, motive, strong as rope. He leaned back, face set. Archer has debts, everyone knows. His son worse, gambling, cards, horses. Caro threatened to expose him, so Archer silenced him. Dolly's voice trembled. Killed. For his son's debts? Slack nodded sharply. Yes, to cover shame, to save face, to hide theft. Archer laughed suddenly. A sharp, hollow sound. Baseless. I never touched those funds. You're twisting numbers to fit your tale. Slack slammed the ledger shut. The sound cracked through the room. Enough. You killed him. For money. The sergeant stiffened. Pearl began to cry. Mrs. Rower whispered a prayer. Archer sat still. His jaw clenched. His eyes burned, but his lips forced a smile. You have pages. You have gossip. But you don't have proof. Marple spoke softly. Proof comes not only in ink, it comes in pattern, and patterns never lie. Slack shoved the ledger aside. We'll see if a jury agrees. Marple lowered her gaze. Money. Always money. It drove pride. It drove shame. It drove men to destroy even their own peace. And now it had driven one man to strike another down. Slack's words cut through the hush. He killed for money. Kindness twisted into guilt. Pearl sat pale at the counter. Her hands twisted her apron, her eyes wet. Inspector Slack pressed. You burned those slips, didn't you? Pearl shook her head quickly. No, sir, not at first. I never meant to. I only... Her words choked. She looked down. Dolly leaned toward Marple. She knows something. Poor child. Slack's voice rose. Speak up, girl. Out with it. Pearl trembled. Her lips moved, but no words came. Finally she whispered, He asked me to help. Slack leaned closer. Who? Her eyes darted to Archer, then away. Mr. Archer, he asked me. Archer laughed harshly. Lies. She's frightened. Don't believe her. Pearl flinched at the sound. Her voice cracked. He was kind to me, always smiling, always saying I was clever. He said no one would notice if I changed a slip. Just a time, just a little thing. Her tears fell. He said it was harmless. He said it was to save embarrassment. I thought it meant nothing. Slack slammed his notebook shut. You falsified the record? You gave him a false alibi? Pearl sobbed. Yes, I wrote it as he asked. I changed the time. I let him guide my hand. Mrs. Rower gasped. Pearl, how could you? Pearl buried her face in her hands. I only wanted him to like me. He said I was special, that I was better than the rest. I wanted to believe him. Marple's voice came soft. Flattery is a cruel rope, child. It binds the weak to the strong. He used you. Pearl lifted her head, her face streaked with tears. There's more. Slack's eyes narrowed. Go on. Her voice dropped. He told me to take the slips, the ones with times. He said they would confuse things. He gave me the matches. He told me to burn them when no one was looking. Gasps spread across the room. Pearl's hands shook. I lit them in the bin. I watched them curl. I thought it was for him, for kindness. But now... Her body shook with sobs. I see what I did. I destroyed the truth. Archer rose slightly. Enough. This is nonsense, a girl's hysterics. Nothing more. Slack blocked him with a hand. Sit down, Archer. Your time will come. Pearl's voice broke again, her last words faint but clear. He told me not to tell. Marple's eyes filled with quiet sorrow. The girl was no murderer, only a pawn. Her kindness had been bent, her trust twisted into guilt. And that guilt had now torn open the mask Archer wore. Pearl's whisper carried through the room. He told me not to tell. Only a reenactment can break lies. Inspector Slack folded his arms. All right, Miss Marple. You say Archer could slip out unseen. Prove it. Marple nodded calmly. Not now. Tonight. When the room is quiet, when every detail may be measured. Slack frowned. Midnight, then. His sergeant scribbled a note. Dolly whispered to Marple, Jane, must you really walk those steps at such an hour? Marple gave her a gentle smile. Truth does not sleep, Dolly. At midnight they gathered. The tea room stood silent, cups cleared, chairs stacked, but the back door unlocked. Slack pointed. Begin when I say. Take the exact path Archer might have taken. Marple set her watch. Slack raised his hand. Go. She moved through the kitchen, out the back door, down the alley, across the lane, to Caro's office. 3 minutes. No sound. No witness. She paused at the door, her eyes solemn. Here he struck, quick, silent, then back again. She returned by the same path. Slack timed aloud. 1 minute, 2, 3. She entered the tea room once more. 6 minutes, the sergeant said. Marple raised her finger. Not quite. He would also need a distraction. She stepped to the side table. She lifted a glass. Her hand tipped. The glass fell. It shattered across the floor. All heads turned at once. Even in a rehearsal, every eye moved to the noise. Marple's voice came steady. In those seconds of confusion, he could have slipped through. By the time eyes returned, he would be seated again. Slack's jaw tightened, so he could vanish and return. 8 minutes, unseen. The group murmured. Pearl wept quietly. Mrs. Rower shook her head. I never noticed. Not once. Archer stood stiff, his voice forced calm. This proves nothing. A trick staged at midnight is no proof of murder. Slack stepped closer, his eyes cold. It proves you had the chance, the path, the time, and a distraction strong enough to blind a room. Dolly leaned against the wall. Her voice shook. Jane, it's dreadful. All of us fooled. All of us looking the wrong way. Marple touched her hand. Evil thrives when eyes look elsewhere, Dolly. He used that truth well. Slack snapped his notebook shut. We've shown the means. We've shown the time. Now we only need proof in his own pocket. Marple's heart sank. Truth had moved from shadow to shape. But without one last proof, shape could still slip away. Justice, she knew, depended on that final knot tied. Slack's voice cut sharp in the silence. Now we only need proof in his own pocket. Archer smiles, too confident. The next morning the tea room was quiet. Inspector Slack stood firm at the center table. Archer sat across, arms folded, lips curved in a confident smile. Slack laid blackened fragments on the wood. Recognize these? Archer glanced. His smile widened. Scraps of rubbish, ash and soot. You waste your time. Slack's voice hardened. Burned order slips. One says Devonshire, another says 310. Both match your order. Both burned to hide time. Archer laughed. Such imagination. Anyone could have dropped them. Anyone could have burned them. Do you call this evidence? Pearl shifted uneasily near the counter. Her eyes stayed down. Her hands twisted in her. Apron? Slack leaned closer. You burned the truth. You tried to hide the hour you left this tea room. Archer leaned back. And yet here I sit, accused by paper ashes. You'll need more than that, Inspector. Marple's voice came quiet. Indeed, more than ashes, which is why I kept this. She drew the condolence card from her knitting bag. She placed it before them. Archer's eyes flicked to it. His smile thinned. Slack frowned. A card. What of it? Marple's finger traced the lines. The words look ordinary, yet the letters fall oddly. The second letters, when read downward, form a name. She spelled it softly, Lyon. The room stilled. Pearl looked up sharply. Mrs. Rower gasped. Even Slack's brows rose. Marple's eyes met Archer's. Lion. A shortened form of Lionel. Lionel Archer. Archer's face lost color. His lips pressed tight. He forced a laugh. A puzzle game? A child's trick? Hardly proof. Marple's tone stayed calm. Proof of cunning. You meant to taunt, to boast in shadow, yet pride often betrays the guilty. Slack slammed his palm on the table. Your lies crumble, Archer. fragments burned, receipts forged, and now your name hidden in a message of false sorrow. You thought yourself clever, but clever men trip on their own pride. Archer's fingers twitched. He glanced toward Pearl, her eyes wide, her face pale. She clutched the counter edge. Archer's breath quickened, his eyes fixed on the card, his hands clenched. Then sudden and fierce, he lunged across the table. Dolly's heart pounded. She clutched Marple's arm. Even the bravest words could not soften the danger when truth finally struck a nerve. The mask of confidence was gone, and what lay beneath was raw desperation. Archer lunged toward Pearl, hand outstretched to snatch the card away. The mask slips, and the man trembles. Archer lunged across the table, his hand stretched toward Pearl, but Slack's arm locked around his shoulder. "Sit down, Archer." The sergeant gripped the other side. They forced him back into the chair. Archer struggled once, then stilled, his face flushed, his breath sharp. Marple's voice cut through. "Enough. The truth is plain." The room held still, every ear turned, every eye fixed on her. She spoke gently, each word firm. Archer forged his alibi. He staged a receipt at 3:12, but the ink betrayed him. It was blue, not green, written before the cartridge changed, written earlier than he claimed. Pearl sobbed. "He told me it was harmless. He said no one would know." Marple nodded. "Yes, child, he deceived you, just as he deceived others." She continued. "He demanded cream with his tea. He repeated it loudly, twice, but the truth was different. The cream tickets were untouched. He had been served butter, not cream." A slip of detail revealed the lie. Dolly whispered, "Jane, you saw even that?" Marple gave a faint nod. Small things matter. They speak when people try to cover larger sins. Slack leaned forward. "And the alley?" Marple's eyes moved to the back door. "He left by the service route. 3 minutes there, 3 back. Enough to strike Caro. He dropped the weapon, then returned unseen. The broken glass distracted the room. No one noticed his absence." Mrs. Rower gasped. "I never thought—" Marple raised the card. And then the message. A condolence card, slipped where eyes might miss it, words lined with care. But letters betrayed the truth. They spelled Leon, Lionel Archer. Archer's fists clenched, his jaw tight. But his eyes dropped. Slack's voice thundered. Motive 2. Caro held accounts, roof fund short, sums bent, gambling debts of Archer's son. Caro meant to expose him at 3:20. Archer silenced him first. Pearl collapsed into tears. Her voice broke. "I'm glad it's out. I couldn't carry it any longer." Dolly pressed her hand to her chest. "It's dreadful, all this death for money." Marple lowered her gaze. "Not only money, Dolly. Pride, shame, the wish to appear strong. Men destroy much for that." Archer shifted in his chair. Slack's grip stayed firm. The sergeant's hand pressed his shoulder down. The room waited. Marple's words had tied the threads together. No one doubted now. Marple's heart felt heavy. Justice revealed truth, but truth often cut deep. And even the guilty still wore the face of human weakness. Archer muttered through clenched teeth. "I had no choice. Tea is poured, but trust broken." The chairs were back in order. The cups cleared, but no comfort lingered. Dolly sat close to Marple. Her hands still shook, her voice low. "Jane, this was the most dreadful tea I have ever had." Marple gave a small nod. "Yes, Dolly, a dreadful tea indeed." Pearl stood by the counter, her face pale, her apron crumpled in her hands. "I'm sorry, Miss Marple. I never meant harm. I only wanted to please him." Mrs. Rower touched her shoulder, her voice quiet. "We are grateful it is over, but ashamed, too. Such deceit under our roof." Slack closed his notebook, his eyes tired. Justice will take its course, but the wound here may last longer than the trial. He turned to leave, his sergeant behind him. Silence fell heavy. Each sound in the room felt sharp. A cough, a chair leg scraping. Even breath seemed louder. Dolly leaned forward again. "Jane, how do you see such things?" "Small things, things the rest of us miss." Marple's reply was soft. "Because crime grows best where trust is blind. People look past details when they trust too much. That is where evil hides." Pearl wept quietly, her words broken. I thought his smile was kindness. I thought he cared. Marple looked at her with gentle eyes. "He cared only for himself, child. You were used, but you may learn. And in learning, you may grow stronger." Mrs. Rower wiped her eyes. "I will never forget this. Never again will I believe charm without question." Dolly gave a faint laugh, bitter, unsteady. "Well, I suppose I shall keep to my own tea at home, safer, if duller." Marple folded her knitting. Her voice carried soft but firm. "Safety never lies in cups, Dolly, only in clear eyes. Some alibis look strong, yet alibis, like sugar cubes, dissolve quickly under heat." The words hung. Pearl nodded, tears sliding still. Mrs. Rower bowed her head. Outside, a cart rattled past. Life moved on, but inside the air felt changed. Marple looked toward the window, her thoughts quiet, her eyes calm. "Some alibis," she said slowly, "are never what they seem." The bell above the door rang, the sound sharp, sudden. Every head turned. A stranger stepped in, hat lowered, face shadowed. The room froze once more. Marple's gaze held steady. Truth had been spoken, justice set in motion. But life, she knew, carried endless puzzles, and beyond every door, another might wait. The bell chimed again, and another stranger entered.